Okay, so The Wheel of Time from Netflix series. This is obviously based off of Robert Jordan's fantasy series of the same name, and whereas I've read through and I do enjoy these books, they've never been my favorite. They've always been pretty good. I enjoyed that. Getting by mostly on the fact that they have a strong beginning and a strong ending, and the only bad parts are in the middle, and you can just sort of skip over that. So understand that I'm coming at this from the point of view of somebody who likes the series but doesn't really love it. It's so far been alright.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
The first thing I gotta say is that the effects are noticeably CG, and that's not necessarily the biggest issue in the world. It's a TV show, and TV shows have budgets and everything. But after watching that Foundation show, it is a little bit noticeable that the effects aren't quite as good. Now, I have my own issues with that Foundation show, mostly that I think it's kind of dumb, but that is a level of effects you can get for TV. I don't know, maybe the budget wasn't there. It's obvious this is a green screen. That combines with, I don't know how else to say this, but some of the lighting makes the world look a little bit flat to me. So if you look at this scene from Lord of the Rings, the beginning with the hobbits and the green dragon, the lighting in here feels like the lighting you might find in an inn. Maybe that's not accurate, but it gives off that feeling. Whereas the lighting in the Wine Spring Inn here feels a little bit TV set-y. Which, again, it is a TV set, so I guess that's accurate, but it is noticeable to me that sometimes the world feels just a little bit too even. Other than that, I think the cast and acting are both great. Rosamund Pike does a really good Moraine, and her chemistry with Daniel Henney as Lan is probably the best character interactions on this show. And whereas I can say that the actors for Matt and Perrin are both doing a good job, I don't really like the changes the writers has made to the characters' backstories all that much. I don't know, it feels like saying Perrin has a wife. Anyone who's read the series knows, whereas a lion might go into a pride, falcons are monogamous. So her life expectancy was not long. Similarly, I don't know why Matt can't just be a precocious prankster. That's just a type of person that exists in the world. He doesn't need to have this kind of tragic story where his parents are kind of deadbeats and it's up to him to look after his sisters. Felt unnecessary to me, and it gives him a connection back home that I don't think the Matt in the books actually had, and I'm kind of not loving it. They get the feeling right of these characters, though. The actors especially do a good job giving me the impression that, oh yeah, that's Matt, Perrin, and Rand. They do a good job giving me that impression. It's just I don't like those backstory changes much because one feels kind of unnecessary and the other feels kind of redundant. That's not to say I hated it because it was different from the books. I just don't really know where they're going to go with these backstory changes. I also feel like something is lost in the telling when we're not just following Rand from on the day of Winter's Night, but I understand why they wanted to put an action scene in here at the beginning to get people's attention. And I understand they're going heavy into the kind of loss of innocence thing that Robert Jordan was also going for at the beginning. You know, that kind of I'm living in this small town sort of situation, then sent off to see the horrors of war, so that kind of loss of innocence thing. But I don't remember the Emmons Field 5 being this dour in the books. There's still Egwene in the books who's often ready for an adventure. Nynaeve being kind of pig-headed as ever, and, Matt's being the precocious prankster type, rather than, kind of the dour, I need to get back to my family type.
I want my family back.
I do think they get Perrin right. That leads me to an overall problem I have. I don't feel like the voices of the characters are exactly right. I'll give the writers time to, inhabit the character's headspace. And I'm not saying I hate this series so far, and I'm not saying that it's a terrible adaptation so far. It's just I don't feel like there's still a disconnect for me. I don't feel like this is Rand. I don't feel like this is Matt, and I don't feel like this is Perrin. I do think they got Nynaeve and Egwene mostly right, though. So far, I'm cautiously optimistic about this series. It's been fine so far, but I was expecting a little better than fine.
I would rate it a C+. Okay? Not great.